If you've seen my other videos, you'll know that I use a full spectrum camera, the one that's in front of you, with a beta U to do the UV photos I take. Now, many people have asked me, how do you modify the CMOS sensor so that it is full spectrum, so you can use it for this kind of thing? And I've said leave it to the professionals. Why would you leave it to the professionals? Why won't I do it? Well, first of all, what you're trying to do is down in there, I don't know if you can see the shine of it, you can always Google it and see images online, is the CMOS sensor. And you have to remove the glass from in front of it and the IR cut filter, low pass filters and things like that. And then if you want real UV, you have to scrape the micro sensors off the actual CMOS, which will render your camera in black and white. Now, first problem, this body, as you pull it apart, you'll find that there's probably between 10 to 15 little ribbon cables, little circuit-based ribbon cables that you can shatter, break and tear. As well as that, there's probably, I don't know, 60, 70 odd screws. You need to be very careful how you do that. And then you risk damaging and scratching the glass. After you've removed the glass and the IR cut filter, you need to re-establish where the focal point is, the focus point. You need to actually tune it. You can replace the glass with something like Spectra quartz. It has to be the same thickness and same properties so that you don't have to worry about refocusing and getting your camera right. Otherwise, autofocus will focus at the wrong point. On top of that, you can damage the assembly which holds the CMOS sensor. And then if you decide to remove the micro lenses and scratch it, you can actually scratch the sensor itself. So I leave it to the professionals. I'm not going to be doing that, and I don't recommend you do either. I recommend you find somebody who can do it for you. Now, given that the principle behind most of these cameras is all the same, doesn't matter whether it's a Sony, Nikon, Canon, doesn't really matter. They're all going to be roughly the same. Then what you have is you have usually a glass filter backed by some sort of cleaning mechanism, backed by the IR cut filter, and the combination of everything reduces your UV, your IR, and it shows you only the range you can normally see. And then on top of that, on the CMOS, you've then got the micro lenses. So given that it's pretty much all the same, what I will do is take a security camera. So here we have a day-night security camera. It's an old analog one. And what I am going to do is take the lens off the front. And if you look down inside the guts of that, you've got your sensor. Same thing we're used to looking at in a DSLR, but this time it's actually in a security camera. So let's actually see what goes on, shall we? Now, I've cheated here a little bit. I've already taken apart a chassis. I've now taken the lens off, so we'll unscrew it. And this is the same front throat we were looking at in this camera. Same one, exactly the same. And so what I've done is I've removed the front of the camera, and behind is the circuit board with the CMOS sensor that senses the photo. So if I remove that, inside here is everything that makes the IR cut work. So what we're now seeing is everything that sits beneath the chassis where the lens mounts, and it's everything that's between the lens element closest to the CMOS and the CMOS itself. So this is the assembly, very similar to what's in a Canon camera or anything like that, that holds all the bits together. Now, what we have here is tiniest little piece of glass. Very tiny, very, very small, hard to see. That's separated internally by the parts that allow it to do the day-night. This one here has got all your UV and IR cut on it, and this one doesn't. This allows the IR to work. Obviously this uses some fancy stuff at night time to see what's going on. Very similar color to what is the lens that comes out of a standard DSLR that's been stuck over the top of the CMOS. And we'll do a close-up of that in a moment, and we'll have a bit of a look at what actually makes that up. So that, And that piece of glass that you saw, very small piece of glass, sits over the sensor, preventing UV and IR getting to the actual sensor. If I turn that over, now you can see the sensor. This security camera, it's actually quite a small sensor, but nevertheless, that's a sensor. Now, this sensor has glass still over the top, so I've got to remove that glass as well, and then I'll expose the CMOS, and then on that CMOS is going to be the Bayer filter. The Bayer filter is what gives you contrast and also, unfortunately, the color, because we have to remove that to get back to what's underneath it, which will give us a black and white image, but it will give us higher sensitivity to UV. So next trick is to remove this piece of glass and get to the CMOS underneath. Even though I promised that I was going to pull the glass off this CMOS sensor, it's stuck on rather tight. I might have to use a hairdryer to release the glue. I've just tried a box cutting knife to cut around the edge of the glass and a screwdriver, and I could not lever it up. That's okay though, because this gives you the idea of what the sensor is like, what you've got to deal with. But I do have an old 350 EOS 350 sensor that we can scrape the top off of, so it's now at this point out of the camera in my hand. This is obviously still the security camera CMOS, just as an analogy. So let me get that one and start scraping off the micro lenses. Whilst I've got the filters out, let's take some photos showing what it looks like with the UV being blocked.